What I feel passionate about is that politics affects all of our lives. It affects, so many things, from schools to if our bins are picked up to what we were just talking about. It affects our lives. And the thing about this, for me, is that there is a disparity where people from more disadvantaged backgrounds are far less likely to vote. If you go to Eton and you get your good political education, well, you're very likely to become Prime Minister, but you're also very likely to vote. And actually, that disparity is what gets me, if I'm honest with you. And actually, for me, this is a justice issue. It's not about smacking people on the hands and saying, oh, you haven't voted. It's actually about saying, we want people politically engaged because they deserve to be politically engaged, because this is about your area and your life.
But do they also have the option of not wanting to and not having to? Isn't that one of the great liberties that we have in this country? We do have the vote, and those people who are proud to have it and pleased to have it and remember the suffragettes and consider it to be a privilege and an honour to be able to vote. And the people who don't, and nobody can force them to. Isn't that the point?
I mean, the thing is I would combine this. I would never bring this in without compulsory political education. So I think
compulsory political education.
Because again, if you're from a wealthy background and you go to a private school, you're going to get yourself a really good political education.
Do you think so?
Yes, of course.
I remember Latin verbs.
I don't know. I feel like
I remember the poetry of Catullus. I remember quite a lot of Shakespeare. I don't remember any political education at school.
70% of people from certain backgrounds tend to dominate politics, media, and lots of other places. Now, I'm not bashing those people for that, but I think as a country we would be better if you have people from all backgrounds. Do you know what I mean? So it's not dominated by certain people. And education is power. Education empowers people. I know, because I've taught in schools and I've taught kids about political education in both primary and secondary, and it's shocking. It's really sad when people don't even know what a counsellor is, and they don't know the power that they can have. And I actually would say it goes to the roots of this country. One of the great things is actually we had the suffragettes and we had people like George Lansbury, who's from East. He was an East End MP, and actually I think there's a vision for this country that can look different, which actually says people from all backgrounds, all areas, this is for you. It's not just for certain people.
But that's education, that's one thing. But I'm not saying, do you think there should be more political education? I'm saying and asking, do you think there should be a penalty if you don't vote? So should you be fined, punished, arrested? What should happen to you if you don't vote? Do you really think that that's something that's enforceable and that you'd like to see enforced?
I mean, and this is the thing. I don't like I'm going to be honest with you, I don't like the idea of a fine. So this is when, I can understand when my argument comes a bit unravelled. But not, it doesn't. I'm saying it has to be done in stages. You would bring in political education so people understand and they hopefully through that political education they'll be like, actually, I want to vote. This is important. I'm voting for someone.
But don't you think there's a situation going on here, Wilfred, I don't know if you agree, whereby people feel, some people, a real hopelessness about it all? People who, for example, might have been hoping for great things from the Labour government. And one of the first things to happen was the winter fuel allowance being canned for so many pensioners, that kind of a thing. And so I think there are some people who feel, what's the point anyway? There's always someone in charge. It's never me. They've never got my interests first. I never feel as if I'm really being served by anyone. So I can't be bothered to go and vote for councillors because, quite frankly, it won't make a difference anyway. And I think there's a kind of feeling of futility and hopelessness that's actually terribly depressing and distressing. But I wonder if that's reflected in the very low turnout, Wilfred, and whether you think that people should be sort of punished for feeling that.
OK, you're absolutely right. I mean, people are not engaged in politics as you would like them to be, because actually they're always disappointed by what politicians promise. What I do think, though, is that I think we should try and get to a stage where voting does become compulsory, but in order for it to become compulsory, you've got to make it easier for people to vote. The reality is that people have very, very busy lives. The idea that you've got to find the time to go and vote is just so inconvenient for most people. That's why you have such a low turnout. And I cannot understand in this day and age, with all the technology that we have at our hands, why can't we create something that makes it easier?
And so that you could email or text your vote in.
There must be,
I just wonder, though, how much of it is inconvenience and how much of it is indifference and a sense of despair. Really.
All the same.
I think it is indifference, but also I think if it's convenient, because everybody has a view, and if it was easy for them to give their view.
Let's go to Caroline. She's on the line in Essex. How do you feel about this, Caroline? Do you think that voting should be compulsory?
Yes, I do. I think we all have a duty. We also have if we do decide to vote on the ballot, there's always one you can make a mess of the ballot and it won't be counted. I find it with young people now in their 40s are saying, I don't know an awful lot about politics, so I won't bother to vote. Well, politics is all around them.
So you agree
they
with
should-
Suzy, really, that what we really need is political education so that people understand, look, this is the sort of thing that affects how long you're going to have to wait for an operation on the NHS. It affects whether the library in your neighbourhood closes down. It affects whether you risk your life on a bicycle going into a pothole that hasn't been repaired. It's not some weird Westminster thing. It affects you and your family and everything that happens to you. This really matters. Do you think that's the message that hasn't got across?
No, I just don't think they can be bothered.
You can't be bothered. But I wonder why not? Because if everything that happens to you is affected by the people that you elect to local government and then to central government, then why can you not be bothered? Because it matters to you in everything you do.
It's like hope has been bashed out of people.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? People feel disappointed.
Let's go to Georgia. Georgia's in London. What do you think, Georgia?
Yes, I think it's a great idea, but only on the proviso
Yes.
that they have a none of the above option.
Yes.
Right.
Because
And
I think if you've got-
explain why that matters to you and why you think that's important.
I think the reason why it's important is if you have three candidates, for example, and politically you're absolutely ideologically opposed to them, or they have certain things that they want to, in their manifesto that you just don't agree with it, you don't agree with the policies, I think you should be able to tick none of the above. I think it's wrong to force someone to vote for someone who they ideologically opposed to. I just think it's totally against democracy.
And tell me
force
something,
someone to
hand on
vote.
heart, Georgia. Do you always vote in local elections, or have you occasionally thought, oh, damn, I've missed it, or actually I can't be bothered, or actually it's too cold, I'm too busy? Do you always vote in local elections?
I absolutely do, and I vote by post, so I don't have to be there on the day.
OK.
And I've also stood in local elections, and I was the first female independent councillor in Harrow back in 2014. So very proud of myself.
Well done
done
to
you.
you. You should be. Absolutely excellent. Thank you, Georgia, very much. Paul says, of course, it should be a choice. Maybe none of the candidates appeal to you, so why would you vote for them? And Jonathan says, the trouble with making voting compulsory is that you'll have millions of people who have absolutely no interest in politics, don't care who they vote for, and we could end up with a very different result at the polls, which would likely be worse, in my opinion. So if people are dragooned into it, they might vote in a sort of unthinking way, but that seems a bit peculiar because their vote's still valid, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you get those little books, don't you? And you can have a little read through the candidates, even if you go in the polling station and quickly do it. So hopefully that wouldn't happen.
Yes. I wonder, though, Wilfred, what kind of punishment you could mete out to people who don't vote. If you're in Australia, I think they fine them, but it's about 20 quid. It's barely worth it, is it?
Well, it isn't fair to fine people or give any punishment unless it's really convenient and easy. So that's what I would be sort of advocating. And I don't think you need to be politically educated to vote. It becomes quite arrogant when we say that because, they may not have the education, they may not have all that interest, but they'll have an opinion, and that opinion should count.
I don't think it's arrogant. It's more saying that ultimately there are people from certain backgrounds that do get a political education.
What is a political education? I mean, I don't
even
think...
if it's a basic understanding of, what the political parties stand for, what it means. Like lots of people don't even know that you can vote, and then you get a local
lots of people
councillor
currently who work for the political parties and don't have the things
understand what it
what they
means.
stand for,
And
quite
do you think-
frankly.
do you think that
Let's go to Linda. Linda's in Bristol. Go on, Linda, tell the truth. Do you vote in general elections?
Well, I didn't this time.
Right.
And I didn't vote yesterday because I think because all these politicians up in government don't understand what us human beings, like pensioners, have to live on what they get every week or every month. If they had to live on the pensions that we get, they'd be they were terrible. They don't seem to understand what the basic wages are for a pensioner. That's what
Can
I'd
I
like
ask,
to
Linda,
say.
how do you think it helps pensioners if you don't vote? What do you think the statement is that you're making by not voting?
I don't think it helps at all.
So, but what's the point of not voting then? Wouldn't it be maybe better to vote for the party that you think has pensioners closest to its heart rather than not voting at all?
Yeah. Yeah, how many politicians have got pensioners at heart? Come on.
Well,
Not
what would you
many.
say, Suzy, to that?
I think a lot of them have.
Well, I think actually, because pensioners tend to be
Ones who vote.
a group that vote in high numbers. They do think about them, but and look, I agree with why people do sometimes feel like they're all the same, But for me, that's also about getting different people into politics, and that goes back to political education. You get more people from different backgrounds involved. That's what you'll see. That is for me, that's the future vision in the country.
But it's very sad, isn't it, that our caller there, Linda, says, look, I don't think there's a single politician that really cares or really can imagine what it's like to live on a state pension.
Yeah.
And therefore I couldn't be bothered to vote because I just thought, what is the point? No one really is looking after me or out for me. That's pretty bleak, isn't it?
We do need people in politics whose hearts break for people that are struggling and suffering.
Remember the wonderful politician Frank Field?
Yeah, I do,
He was somebody that people felt really cared.
There's too many career politicians.
Tessa Jowell used to be.
There's something we can agree on. There's too many career politicians. It can't be about power. It's got to be about service.
And what you really don't want is a population that really doesn't trust politicians and therefore thinks it's not even worth voting. It's very, very depressing, isn't it?